Hey, Scott from Aristocob.com here.
And Seth from SethMarkwood.com.
Together, the three of us, that's you and him and me, we are Markwood Men's Breakfast Club. Welcome once again, or for the first time, welcome. Good morning, boy.
Good morning, Homer.
We have been smoking through a bunch of samples of Lane 1Q. We're going to continue to smoke through some samples of, no, not Lane 1Q, of Lane tobacco. So reach in here and grab something.
Remember all those times people thought that my name was Boyd?
Boyd. Yes, I do remember that.
Smoke this, shall we? This is English Luxury. Inglux. Oh yeah, there is nothing in this box that we got that you were gonna enjoy. I'm gonna like this one though.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Eventually we will run out of all of this stuff, and all that will remain. Ooh, let's change the lights. And all that will remain is the other stuff. What color today? Let's go red.
I don't have a small
I
enough.
guess think of the lights.
I don't have a small enough pipe to enjoy this in.
Yeah.
It's an English tobacco. It's fine.
Yeah,
right?
it's fine.
It's fine.
Quit your griping. I mean, smoke it in the metal pipe, and then you know.
They can blame it on the pipe.
That's right.
All right. So, how the heck are you?
I'm great. And whew.
Did I tell you how I ruined half of a brisket the other day?
No.
It was like super disappointing. So, we've talked in the past about cooking sous vide.
We've talked very recently about cooking brisket too.
Smoking brisket. And in fact, one of those briskets I smoked, I think we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about I don't know, what was it, an $80 brisket, something like that. And it came out perfect. And I cut it in half, and we enjoyed half of it. We enjoyed that half at your house. Then the other half, I went ahead, since I was traveling, I went ahead and put it in the food saver bag, and stuck it in the freezer. Stayed in the freezer for a couple weeks, and then it was time for me to reheat that sucker. So I thought, well, probably the best way to do that would be sous vide. We can put it in hot water, and then that would slowly raise the temperature up until the internal temperature acclimated with the temperature of the water. I'd be good to go. So what did I cook it to? Well, I initially smoked it to an internal temperature of 205 degrees.
Okay.
Now, what temperature do we usually heat a steak up to?
Medium
rare steak.
Between 126 and 135 in the sous vide.
So for me, it's 130 is my 130, 131.
Sous vide everything does 135. Usually, I do 126 because that's more on the rare side. But then as you sear it, the temperature carries over and gets it up into medium rare.
Well, I wouldn't have seared this, right? So, but it would be logical, because the interesting thing about sous vide is once the meat hits the temperature that the water is set, it doesn't continue to go up. It just stays at that temperature. Mm-hmm. So if I had put it in there at 130, 135, it would have gotten to that temperature I'm used to eating a steak. But it was already cooked, right? Fully cooked.
And all you're doing at this stage is reheating it to a temperature that is pleasant to eat, not trying to continue to cook it.
So I put it into the sous vide, into the pot that I was using. I set the temp, and then I ran some errands, and I was gone for about 2 hours, which is fine. Once it hits that temperature, it can stay at that temperature for as long as, well, it starts to change texture after a while, but it would have been fine for 2 hours. Not a problem at all.
205?
I set it for 205.
Yeah.
So I get back, and that 205 is really hot water.
Yeah,
right?
205 will scald you in less than 1 second.
Really?
You touch it.
Tell me more about that, son.
Did that happen?
It was dang hot.
I don't know why I had this conversation, but very recently I was looking at the scalding temperature and time of water. And something like 160 will scald you in 3 seconds, and like 180 in 2 seconds, and over 200 it'll do it lickety split.
So I pull it out, and the moment I take the lid off of this, I realized, oh, I screwed up.
Yeah, because what you've done at that point is you've cooked it You're not warming it up. You've
Yeah, I
cooked
cooked
it an extra 3 hours or however
Right.
long.
So I pull a bag out, and what do I see? I see a bag, and all of the juice, all of the fat, all of the collagen, everything that makes the meat delicious and gives it that moisture, it's still in the bag. It just isn't in the meat. And so I set it out, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to let this rest for a while. Maybe it'll reacclimate, right? So I gave it about a half hour. Put some. I had a towel. I threw a towel over it just so it wouldn't get cold. And came back and opened the bag up and started slicing. Have you ever sliced sawdust?
Really, that bad?
I mean, it was so dry. It was unbelievably dry.
Man.
And it just was a reminder to me of all the times that I've criticized my wife about not understanding food science, because you can put something in water and make it dry. Right? Because if you cook it long enough and hot enough, it'll force the natural occurring moisture out. In this case, that moisture was that I bought a prime cut of brisket. So it was so well marbled, it had lots and lots of fat throughout the meat. Not anymore.
The half of it that we ate was delicious.
It was,
and marbled.
And because it was the end,
Yeah.
that was the flat. It was already less fat in the flat. I ruined $40 worth of brisket.
Was any of it salvageable
I
in any
ate,
way?
I ate some of it. I'm on a low carb diet, but at that point, it's like I'm eating moist beef jerky.
Did you eat it?
It was not. It was.
Did you eat it with the sauce?
You saw me smoking that pipe last week with that blade
Yeah.
tobacco in it. Imagine that as me eating brisket. I've never eaten brisket like that.
Did you use the sauce as a jus?
I did. I absolutely did.
That's the only way you could really save it.
There was no redeeming. I mean, what I probably should have done would have been to really chop it up, maybe in the food processor, mix mayonnaise in it, and do it like a chicken salad kind of a thing. But I don't know, since I've learned how to cook on a grill and a smoker, which has been a long time, I don't know that I've ever ruined anything quite like that. I mean, it was just...
What a bummer.
It was so disappointing. Thankfully, we hadn't invited anyone over for dinner. No one else had great expectations of dinner because I was busy that night, and your mom was at the hospital. She called and said, well, I'm going to go ahead and grab something on the way home. So it was just me. So I only ruined my dinner.
Bummer.
Yeah. So, anyway, how about you? Anything new going on with you?
Yeah, so I have changed positions at work, and in my new role, I am now managing both sales and marketing. So it's really, really exciting. A lot of new challenges and a lot of responsibility. Very honored.
You were working hand in hand with those folks anyway, right? You all coordinated and you knew what was going on there.
Yeah. So we've got a small company. For a time, there were two members of a marketing department. Each one had responsibilities for our two different brands. Then in the last 6 months, that changed where their responsibilities were sliced by audience type. So one focused more on the end user customers, the people that are actually using our product, and then the other focused more on the government approvals and the engineering specifiers. So our product, like many construction or commercial products, has a number of hands that are involved in the decision-making process. You've got a government official that's going to decide if we can sell our product into their region. You have an engineer or architect who designs our product into a building plan. There's a contractor who actually installs the product and has to know how to do that the right way. And then there's the restaurant owner or kitchen staff that are actually going to have to live with the decisions that all of these other people have made. And so our marketing, and anyone in that chain could be the deciding factor of if our product gets installed, right? Because if the contractor,
they could all say no. Each of them can say no.
That's right. So if the restaurant owner says, "Hey, I saw an ad about this product, I really want this put in," they can be the ones that drive the regulator to approve it, and then that drives all the way down the chain. Or the regulator can be the ones to suggest it. So our marketing involves all of those. In business development, I have been involved in communicating with all of those. And so I've worked very closely with our marketing department. Well, we have now switched. One of our people in marketing is now working in product development and product management, and helping with bringing those new products to market, getting testing, certification. So to a degree, it is almost, he's providing some of the back end information that can be used in marketing. So my position now is now not strictly business development. I'll be overseeing business development and marketing, and so it's really cool. With this change, there's been a lot of examination of the way that we do things. We're looking to hire some new people, and so I thought it would be an interesting topic of conversation. Some of those processes, because I know you have some involvement with that. And so one thing that I was going to ask her or ask is, in your experience, and this is not exactly related to what we were talking about, but in your experience, what makes for a good or an excellent meeting? These are unprompted questions.
Well, first off, before I answer that question, I was bragging about you at work after hearing about that promotion, and Rob congratulates you. And his first statement was, "Well, it's about time." What makes for a good meeting? Well, okay, it all depends upon what the goal of the meeting is, right? So is the meeting pre-sale, post-sale? Is there an element of training and education in it, or what?
That's a good point. So I'll say this: we're a small organization. We have traditionally had weekly operations meetings, and this is an all-team meeting. Everyone, all hands on deck, where for about 30 to 45 minutes, we talk about really. Where do we stand on? We're a manufacturing company, so what's our backlog looking like? Are there any production issues we all need to be aware of? Have we gotten any customer feedback that we should share? And then are there big events or things happening in the other departments? And then are there upcoming events, trade shows, travel, those sorts of things? And
so it's the meeting you're talking about?
Yeah.
An internal meeting?
Internal meeting. Internal meeting.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I just put some frames on it. So one of the things that we've been soliciting some feedback on: could we make this better? Are there things to cut? Are there things to add? So a meeting like that, we'll start there.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you're already off to a good start. What you're doing is kind of in line with what the lean manufacturing people teach, where you it really is important to start each day basically with sharp tools, and everybody touching base. What fires are we putting out today? What stress are you guys going to be under? How can everybody help you when you got something that's you're done with? Can you cross train and help each other in that respect? Or if nothing else, at least understand that maybe it's not the best day to come in and say, "Did you see this funny video I saw on YouTube?" Right?
Yeah.
So having that time to check in the morning, and also check in personally, where, hey, my brain is kind of somewhere else today because my daughter's in the hospital, and yada. Those things are really valuable, and not enough companies do that.
So at this point, we do that meeting weekly, not daily. But even that is still a lot more frequently than a lot of companies do.
You know that Fast Cap does 1 hour every
day.
morning.
Yeah.
Every morning, everybody at their factory gets together and has this meeting.
Yeah.
Which is, talk about an investment that the company is making.
Yeah.
But their team is a team. They really, really are a team. Well, okay. So how often then are we talking about doing this meeting?
Well, so that also just best practices or in your experience? I mean,
Okay, so
I want to learn. I want to learn from FastCap. I've watched that they have a great video on their website where they have recorded an entire team meeting. It's an hour-long meeting, and they have made their resources available because they use a standardized procedure for the meeting. But one of the things that I really like about what they do is the ownership for the meeting changes every day, and so every team member leads the meeting at some point in time. And every team member is required for bringing some sort of thing to the table when they lead. So
that's a great idea.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, FastCap. I'm a huge fanboy of Paul Akers. You know, when I first met Paul, which was now almost 20 years ago, I got called into a meeting with the supplier who the product manager kind of wanted another set of ears in the room. And it was Paul Akers. And this guy was he was like the Pied Piper. Everything he was showing, he was so passionate about. And the product manager was like, I don't know what to do with this stuff. And so I got to sit in on that. And the company I work for was one of the first distributor of FastCap products.
Really?
Yeah. And so I guess starting at the very beginning with meetings, especially if they're internal, you got to ask yourself, what is the desired outcome? This is in advance. You think about what is it that we're hoping to accomplish from this? What is the return on investment going to be? Who needs to be there? A lot of folks want to be in meetings for lots of reasons. Sometimes it's just to get away from their work. Sometimes it's just to feel like they're in the know. But
I don't understand that.
It's important that the people that are in the meeting are the people that need to be in the meeting, which means you might have to have a couple small meetings to cover all the topics with all the proper players.
Right.
But a smaller meeting can be much more effective than a big meeting where half of that meeting doesn't apply to you. You guys just sit there quietly, and you're not going to do that. You're going to chime in and interrupt and all that jazz. So I would make sure that's the case. I like the idea that you've got a pretty clear agenda, which comes from what are we hoping to accomplish.
Right.
I think it's also pretty important very early on in the meeting to establish with the whole group what we are here to accomplish in this meeting. So the long-term project is we're going to achieve this, but in this meeting, we're going to hammer out the details of this. And it's also really good if you can to either end the meeting before or the communication that goes out to let people know, here's a little bit of homework I want you to do in advance of this. Don't walk into this room having not checked out the information on the website or looked at the mounting instruction or whatever it is that you're going to be discussing. Everybody should be prepared. Otherwise, you end up having a Groundhog Day meeting where didn't we talk about this last month?
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm not exactly sure what you're angling for.
No,
I'm not telling you what you want to hear. I don't think.
No. It's perfect. No, it's just one of those things. One of those things that has been discussed recently, and there are a number of those things. So I mean, we could jump topics, things that now that my focus is changing a little bit, that are top of mind. Here's and thank you for that. I was looking at an article today that was talking about or recommending having, if you've got a whiteboard in your meeting, having a designated parking lot.
Okay.
They called it.
We now use 2 parking lots, or I would say 2 distinctions, 2 parts of the parking lot.
So explain what a parking lot is.
It happens in every meeting where you got somebody whose brain is just taken off. And maybe it's taken off very constructively. However, it doesn't apply to what we're trying to accomplish in this meeting. Or maybe it's off topic for this moment. So what we'll do to that person, because we want to honor the fact that their brain power is at work on this, quickly jot that down on a Post-it note and stick it in the parking lot, right?
The parking lot is a designated spot.
Stick it up on the wall, and we're going to get back to it. So here's the new distinction. We now have short-term and long-term parking. So short-term parking is something that applies to this meeting, and we're going to get back to it in this meeting once maybe we've covered the things that we've planned on covering, or
may even get to it in the process.
So that's short-term parking.
Okay.
Long-term parking is not going to be discussed or completed during this meeting, but it's super important to honor that person,
right,
and to have that as part of the follow-up. So either an email that goes out that says, okay, Jim brought up an excellent point that we put into the long-term parking. Here's the answer that we didn't have at
right,
the moment of the meeting.
or here's someone
this is
responsible
important
for
enough. We're going to create a new team to address
Right.
that. So
Yeah.
Just a distinction, because I know that I've been in meetings where they go back to the parking lot because they happen to have time, and the meeting leader will like take them down, but basically throw them away. You know, kind of,
Yeah.
okay, we'll talk about this one, and then we talk about this one. No,
That's not the
I
purpose.
mean,
Yeah.
you can group some together if they're this is the same question as this. So let's go ahead and answer that.
Right.
But yeah, the parking lot's really a helpful tool, and it's really good if you're leading the meeting and you don't want to get off track, but you want everybody to feel heard.
Yeah, because the one thing about the parking lot that this website was saying is you have to make sure to maintain trust that you come back to it,
Yeah.
and that you honor that contribution. But it is a way to keep everything on rails going the way that the meeting is designed to go. Who does it? Who decides which parking lot something goes in?
Well, you'll find, I believe, and what we found since we've implemented this is like within the last month. We've been doing parking lots for 20 years.
Wow.
But in the last month we've started this, and it's almost self-regulating. Hey, this is something that probably isn't good for this, but I like to throw it into the long-term parking.
Yeah.
Right? Put it up on the board because they know that this is going to be disruptive because we've been using the parking lot for so long.
Yeah. That's a good tactic.
Yeah, it works. But the leader of the meeting can say, hey, by the way, Jim, write that down.
Yeah.
Put it in long-term
yeah.
parking because we're going to have to get some more information before we can get that
Right.
that question answered.
That's good. That's good. Might implement
It
that.
works really well.
Yeah.
But to your point, if you don't address it, it loses all of its integrity.
Right.
No one's going to put anything in the parking lot.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Another question. Another business question. When do you decide? And you may or may not decide this, but when do you decide if a distributor or rep of yours, or well, you guys use inside sales, but let's say a customer of yours is asking, it's someone that is outside of a territory. So outside, I guess that just doesn't happen. Here's what's happened. We have a distributor of ours who has said, hey, you should come to visit us because it would be really useful for training and for you to understand our market so that we can better work together in the future to grow, yada, yada, yada. All these really good reasons. It is outside of the country and in a territory where we have not had great sales to date, and we have not, there's cultural barriers. And so it would be an incredible inconvenience to go there requesting it, and it could be an opportunity. How do you gauge an opportunity like that?
So allow me to go back to Paul Akers from FastCap. Back in the early days, Paul was a real lean evangelist, and lean manufacturing is sort of the Toyota production method, where I won't go into the explanation of what it is, but anybody who had even that much interest in lean, Paul would drop everything and he would go and he would preach how important lean is, and he would spend time in your factory and show you what you could be doing better. None of this would ever add up to enough sales of his product to justify that time, but he was so passionate about it. He started making YouTube videos, and he has hundreds of YouTube videos. He had people would come to his facility in Washington State, and he would take the time out to really wine and dine them and show them what lean is doing. And he finally got to the point where he realized this isn't healthy. It's not healthy for my business. I need to continue to practice what I preach within my own walls. And so, number one, he will not come and speak to you as a business owner until you're already using lean, until you're already in the family, right? And implementing those things.
And I think you also have to have a YouTube channel as well. I'm serious. I think that's one of those.
Probably, yeah.
I think that's one of the
Well,
stipulations.
you have to indicate to him in some way that you're already because he has hundreds of videos out there. He's not going to come to your location or have you come to his only to repeat what he's done in video.
I think
he's written a book which was free. It's free. His YouTube channel is free. So why would he repeat himself when that information is already out there?
Right. So
I think that if you had all that established, if you had
resources,
what we would call resources or a learning management system of some sort, then you would expect that those distributors would first indicate to you that they're already using your resources, that they understand them, and that maybe what they're just needing some guidance on is the implementation, maybe the language that they need to use to help have the right conversations with their customers. It maybe they don't even know their own market, and they're trying to replicate in their market what you guys have done in yours, and it's not the same. Right. There's some differences. You talked about what's going on in the UK where the sewer systems are privately owned.
Yeah.
That's completely different.
Very different
than public water, waste and water.
Yeah.
So I think that I would suggest to you, if you talk about trying to get your focus on something that's going to give you the best bang for your buck, you should start creating that content, which you can use internally too, and that you could use for your distributors to help them be successful. Because if you can help 10 distributors be 10% more successful, it's much less risky than helping one distributor be 10% more successful or even 100% more successful. Because the aggregate, it's like the pea gravel they put on the ground before they add the asphalt or the concrete. The aggregate of a lot of different businesses, all of them out there growing a little bit, will help your business in a much more healthy way than having one getting all your attention and growing and the others not getting your attention and floundering, maybe leaving. So
that's good. And what I really like about that is that I think what you bring up about Paul Akers is spot on as well, that before making any sort of moves or commitment to go wildly out of our way to support them like this, first there needs to be evidence that they've gone through all of the things that we've already developed, because we have developed those tools and we have developed a lot. And when I was hired 2.5 years ago, one of the ideas of my position in the first place was let's do as much of this as we can remotely, and so until we've done 3, 4, 5, however many is necessary webinars.
Are they recorded?
And video and I have recorded webinars and recorded presentations. I don't use them often because I oftentimes there's so much information that could be covered that oftentimes I will either customize the presentation for the people I'm giving it to.
There's value in that.
Or just and usually the customization at this point, honestly, because I know the material so well, I have a single PowerPoint presentation with 160 slides in it, and I get on the webinar and I ask questions, and based on their answers I jump to slide 40 and then 45 and then jump around and use that presentation as the guideline for what is actually presented. And so it's something that there are some recordings of. There could be more recordings of. I've only started dabbling into that. Did I tell you about that? I created a 30-minute evergreen presentation for one of our markets where I did a deep dive into the local code because the local code was very confusing. I did a 30-minute webinar explaining the code. It was relatively product agnostic with a little bit of sales at the end.
Product agnostic, for those of you who wouldn't know what product agnostic is. When someone is agnostic, they what?
They don't adhere to any one viewpoint or one faith. So product agnostic is a presentation where you're talking about the core tenets, the problems and solutions of your product without talking about your product. So, if you're talking about LED lighting, you're talking about the importance of having lights, you're talking about advantages of LED lighting, low power consumption, long lifetime, blah, blah, blah.
Your brand,
You're talking about how much better yours is than the competition.
Right.
So it's largely informational and educational with a little bit of advantaged, talking at the very end, and then a pitch to, and there's not, it's
fair,
it's branded,
right?
It's branded, it's fair. I talk about competitors in the presentation. This is evergreen, but then the call to action at the end is schedule a follow-up webinar.
So I wouldn't say that you should stop doing that and customizing it for your customer's good, and you wouldn't want to have a recorded version of that same presentation and then offer to do that same presentation.
Right. No, it's
but
totally
you
different.
could have elementary elements of that are pre-recorded that maybe are available through a login to a network, right?
Yeah.
So a private link. Here's a page with all the private links to the videos on YouTube to help support your team.
Yeah.
This would address your sales team. This would address your installers, whoever.
Yeah.
Right. That's not a bad idea. And the thing that I have to harp on people all the time, because I'll get a manager who will say, look, my guy, he should know everything and he just isn't getting it. And it's like, well, how have you been teaching him? Well, I told him to read this book. We don't all learn the same. And it's fair to have content that is replicated over here. It's in video form. Over here, it's a self-paced PowerPoint, maybe with some audio.
Right.
And then there's the book. If you want to get your PhD in this, here's the book.
Yeah.
Right. And some people pick a door, and people are going to pick different doors. And some folks will start in one place and end up in another because you've lit their passion.
Yeah.
So I would suggest to you, and it's a lot of work to kind of map all that out, but think about what is it that people must know. It's sort of like must, should, and can. The must things you attack first, but they should also have this information. And some people can bypass that because they already have that. Right. Maybe it's too simple for some people, but for some people, it's exactly what they need. And some things like kind of you test out of something where, hey, I have a 10 question, a 5 question, a 3 question quiz for you. And depending upon your answers to this will let me know where we should start you off on this road to knowledge. This just happened in a situation where I had a guy that was swearing to me that he should be able to skip some of my classes. I know everything there is to know about that. And I asked him 3 questions. So then tell me a little bit about, and I asked a question.
Yeah.
He had no idea what I was asking. Fair enough. I'm a nerd. I know a little bit more about this than some people. Then explain to me the difference between this option and this option. Didn't know. Said, you're not skipping my class. You're coming to my class. But the good news is those folks leave my classes usually saying, I didn't think I'd learn anything. I learned an awful lot.
Yeah.
So, but they're salespeople that are passionate about getting in front of their customer and learning their customer's needs and trying to satisfy those needs. But if you don't know, if you don't understand not only your product, but the world that your product has to live in. Right. So sort of like with you could train somebody on your product. If all they know is how your product works, they won't sell a thing.
No.
So.
No. Yeah. And my 160 slide presentation starts with grease floats on water. And this is a grease trap. It is for restaurants because without it, you clog the sewers. That's a problem because and you start. It has to start there, and these are how. This is how this one works. How this one works. How this one works. This is how they're tested, and so building up, it is not hot, spiky hot at all.
Yeah.
But when giving that in person, it's easier to do that because I'm not going all the way through start to finish most of the time with that. So.
The last time we were recording, we stepped outside at almost midnight, and I told you about a presentation I was going to have to give. It was the next day or 2 days later that I was really kind of stumped on because the people that were going to be getting this training, and the training was on LED lighting, These were people in the closet industry who sell closet systems. Imagine, you walk into a closet and instead of wire shelves and wire rods, you've got, beautiful wood veneered or melamine with all this great hardware, super functional. But we're talking about lighting. And so many of those folks, it's just easier to go in, quote the closet, and then leave, but not quote the things that'll make that closet different than what they currently have. Because later, when you're done, their clothes will be hung on hangers or folded up and sitting on a shelf or in a drawer. And it's exactly the same situation. So I actually, thanks to you helped me clarify. I had a couple slides at the very beginning and a quote from me, and I said, someone's going to install lighting. Scott Markwood. Someone's going to install lighting. And then the first picture was just this bare bulb on a ceiling. Okay, it could be the builder. Maybe there's already a light in the closet and they're just going to live with the lighting that's there. That lighting that the builder put in the closet was to light the space, not to light the clothing.
Right.
And you still will not match your pants and your socks if you pick your clothes in that light. My current home, that is the situation in my closet. I have to grab the things and walk out into the light to see what these are not even mine.
If only you knew a guy that knew a thing or two about lights.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next picture was a picture of, I don't know, a do-it-yourself solution, or, I know what it was.
Stuck to the wall or something.
It was somebody doing an aftermarket install. And even if it's somebody as competent as an electrician, they're coming into the space after everything is installed on the wall. It's less than ideal to hide wires and to run things down after all this is
wires
secured.
Stuck in the corner.
Yeah, so, hey, they're doing the best they can, but is that what you want, this beautiful thing you're selling your client, is that how you want it to look? Is that how they're going to want it to look?
Right.
And then there was the do-it-yourself, peel and stick, battery-operated, very low-quality lighting. And then the last picture then in this introduction was a picture from their catalog of a beautiful closet that was lit with wonderful lighting that was thought into it and built into it. And I explained how my van that I drive, which once belonged to my father-in-law, he bought it. He was a contractor, strictly utilitarian, crank windows and everything. He had an aftermarket air conditioner put into it by, I don't even know who, but it wasn't made by GM. And no one will touch it. They don't know what to do with it. It's weird. And so it hadn't worked in 3 summers. And in North Carolina, that's not a good thing. But I use that as an example of, they're going to get lighting in that space. Yeah. It's not going to be as ideal as what the original manufacturer could have put in, just like the air conditioner in the Chevy van.
Yeah.
And so then we went into the presentation. I got some pretty good accolades, not only from the people that were in the class, but from the salespeople who brought those folks in to get trained, because it was taking a completely different approach. But here's the thing. I've asked salespeople in the past, let's say we're talking about kitchens and we're going to install or try to sell pantries, or we talked about Lazy Susans, or about spice racks, things like that. And I'll ask them, I said, who is our biggest competitor? And they'll name, 4 competitors. They'll name a distributor who actually doesn't make anything. No, that's a distributor. Who's the competitor? Oh, well, and they'll mention 3 or 4 names. And the real competitor, the person whose kitchen accessories are in 95% of the kitchens made today, is the empty cabinet. The empty cabinet has cornered the kitchen cabinet market in the United States. And why is that?
There aren't accessories.
It's because there is cost involved, but oftentimes the person selling the kitchen at the kitchen dealer or at Home Depot, Lowe's, wherever, they just want to write up that sale and move on to the next customer,
right?
Not thinking it through to, what are you wanting to do in this kitchen? You know what? You really ought to consider, at the very least, some task lighting, because the lighting in the ceiling is not going to help you over here at the kitchen when you're cutting up things. You need a light come in this direction. So
for the 3 of you that are still with us, thank you. to not to belabor the point too much, do you think the reason they don't sell or push those items, what is it primarily? Is it that they're afraid of losing the sale due to the increased cost, or is it that they don't believe in the add-on products enough to prioritize them?
It's the second.
Yeah.
And because they don't believe in it, they know that they're just throwing a cost on that the customer is going to balk at.
Yeah. I ran into the same problem with my plumbing technicians, that when it was like pulling teeth getting them to take their time when going into the home and really doing a good job of investigating and educating. Those two things were critical because homeowners don't think about their plumbing system.
Mm-hmm.
And the most painful money we spend is the money to get back to the way things were before they were broken. And so if the technicians that really took their time brought the customer along as they looked at hey, let's look at the water heater. Do you know about the emergency shutoff? Well, this is what it is. This is what it does. This is what you need to know about it. Really educated the customers and asked good questions.
Right.
Those were the technicians that would find out that the customer hates their kitchen faucet.
Right.
And so when giving them the option, they would give them the option to upgrade their kitchen faucet. Yeah. And if you give a customer an option to not spend that much more money than they were going to have to and have something they like better than what was broken, you win. But oftentimes I found it was one of those two scenarios. Either they didn't believe enough in the products they were offering that they could add the value for the customer, or they thought that the price was just too much.
So for our two remaining viewers.
Yeah, thank you. We'll help keep you awake.
The folks who've forgotten how to switch away from the channel. In 1982,
listeners.
I was working for Color Tile. Color Tile was a flooring company, was owned by the Tandy Corporation, who also owned Radio Shack.
Okay.
Tandy Leather still exists in a few places in Denver.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was working for Color Tile, and I was a salesman. I was a young guy and really didn't know what I was doing. And they had this it was a gimmick. They had this printed check sheet of things that you needed to add on to the customer's purchase. So they're looking at ceramic tile, and you'd say, okay, great, let's go up to the counter and let's get you cashed out. And then you'd grab this checklist, and you'd say, so do you have the sealant for the floor before you apply the adhesive? No. Well, hey, we have that. It's $10 a container. Boom, set it down. Do you have the tool to apply that, the pallet or whatever it was?
Yeah.
No, I got one of those too, right? Now, you're going to have to grout that. Well, isn't the glue the glue it's mastic. No, that is for just sticking the tile down. The grout is going to fill in between. So let's get you the right grout. I think this color is going to go well. Do you have the sealant to add to the grout? Oh, we actually had a bottle of stuff you would mix in with the grout, which was basically water, but it was better than water.
Yeah.
And some of the no would say, no, I'll mix it with water. It's right on the instructions, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a silicone sealant to put on it? No. Oh, you'll need a grout float to clear all this out. Then you'll need a sponge for cleanup. And while we're getting the sponge, how about the bucket? And it was just cha-ching, 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 cha-ching.
And those are the high profit margin, high markup products.
But I was so uncomfortable with that routine, and I never, ever, ever, until I thought about it, I never had anybody get more than like a quarter of the way down the list before they'd say enough. Yeah. And some people said, look, forget it, and they put the tile back.
And just left.
So what I learned to do is to find out what it was they were tiling, and I'd say, have you done any tiling before? And if they, regardless of what they would say, I would say, please keep in mind that you're going to need about $200 worth of stuff to complete this task. So
in addition to the tile,
as you're looking through and making your choice, because there's things from the adhesive to the grout and the sealant and the tools you're going to need, it's going to be about $200 more. We can cover all that for you, but as you're thinking through what you're going to spend, keep that in mind.
Right.
It was night and day that,
Yeah.
you know, and then every now and then you'd have somebody say, I think my father-in-law has one of those. We'll leave that off the list. I can come back for it. And when they did come back occasionally,
Yeah.
we weren't adversaries.
Right. Yeah.
And I sold a lot more of those things, and the guys that worked around me actually started implementing that because it was just so dang uncomfortable. But people needed to at least consider
Yeah.
that you're going to get out there and you're going to need these things. And if you're thinking about doing this late on Saturday night, you're not going to get these things. How about picking them up now?
We would always talk about that too, about how our knee-jerk instinct is to avoid talking about price.
Right.
To lean into price, talk about price early. Either ask them, you know, hey, do you have any guess or any ideas about how much this is going to cost?
Yeah.
Or just volunteer it. And when you do it, give them a range. Give them a strategically, you know, you give the high number first, low number second. You give a range that is realistic. You're not inflating that, but you're setting the expectation there up front.
Your Aunt Jerry, my sister,
Yeah.
did these closet sales at one time. And she would say, you know, they start out at
You're right.
a couple $1,000s, but then they never went above that because she kind of
Right.
established that ground point. But you know what?
Call it price anchoring.
We got a range from the Claus Mahal,
Yeah.
which is going to be more than the cost of your kitchen.
Right.
It just depends upon the choices that you're going to make in your.
The maximum I've ever seen someone spend on this repair is this, and the minimum is this. Most customers fall somewhere in between, somewhere around this amount. And setting that it's all of that, getting that out there is deflating.
Yes.
Company we used for consulting talked about how when you talk to a customer who has a problem, they have an immediate problem, that when you talk to them, they have this balloon of worries over their head. And many times we don't address the fact that they're a human with fears and concerns and worries, and this balloon of weight is above them. And instead we just talk about the thing. We talk about the thing that's broken. We talk about the thing that they're worried about. And by being like squeamish about talking about price, you are inflating the balloon. And they always say, do not inflate the balloon, deflate the balloon, do everything you can to deflate the balloon.
We used to also tell people that, by the way, our presentation here, Shopsmith Equipment, the presentation is about 45 minutes to an hour, depending upon your questions. And just so you know, let's just go ahead and get it on the table. When I'm done with my presentation, I'm going to ask you to buy it. So you know, it's coming. If you didn't say that, you could tell that they would start to get all tense about, you know, now here comes the salesman. Salesman was there all along. I'm going to ask you, so what do you think? You know, can we put it in your car today?
It's so funny you say that. I've been reading a book on negotiation from an FBI negotiator, and that's one of their tactics they talk about is, he says they've done studies when people are in MRI machines and they're being shown something that's scary to them. That the amygdala, that lizard brain, the part of your brain that is all about survival, lights up. And he said the moment that you label the fear, that you ask them, what are you afraid of? The moment you do that, it disappears. The fear moves from the part of the brain that is all about survival and moves to the language process.
Identified it.
You've identified it. And so he says in a negotiation, he said what do they call it? They said do an accusation audit. So before going into a negotiation, think about everything that you want to defend, right? So if you've just had a bad relationship with this person, you want to defend your actions. They said everything, list it out. You know, you're going to accuse me of being underhanded, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And he said, do not defend it, lean into it and label it. And so you say, I know you think I'm trying to be underhanded in this. When you label the fear, the immediate response from the other person, it removes the fear, just like saying, I'm going to do this. That fear can dissipate, because otherwise, if it's left unsaid, that fear just rises. Yeah. And the just crazy response is if I say, I know you think I'm trying to cheat you, your response is likely to lean into and push back against that and say, no, I don't think that. I don't think. No, that's not. And even if you say, yeah, that's what I think. That's what I think. You've now
At least
disarmed.
you're talking about it.
It's right.
That's
It's
really
amazing.
interesting.
Book is called Never Split the Difference. The parts I've read have been very good.
What is that guy's name?
Chris Voss.
God, because I've seen his YouTube videos.
It's terrible.
Yes.
Don't watch him.
So
Listen
terrible.
to him. He's great on podcasts. Terrible on video.
In print, he's good.
Yeah.
I got a trial or a whatever they
We've got an
give me a
email
chapter
stuff,
or something
but-
like that.
Yeah. The
Well,
book is
it's
great.
really interesting. If nothing else, I'm glad that we're here together talking about.
Yeah,
this.
me
It's fun
too.
to talk about.
Me too. If I have split this up into 2 videos, it's because this is really long, and thank you for watching both. And if not, thank you for watching this one. This is one of those times where I think we were enjoying the conversation enough to not worry so much about what's happening here.
You.
And so hopefully you found some value in it as well. So thank you for the
Not
the
sure
insight
why you
and
didn't
feedback.
chime in. We were
That's right.
waiting for you, but you can
Quiet third.
You can now.
That's right.
And leave us a comment. We appreciate those. And
Comment about any or all of the things that we've discussed.
make it a great week.
See ya.
So speaking of that,
Oh shoot, wasn't recording.